who is the executive director of HomeAid. Hello, Aiko. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you today.
Aiko is one of the most amazing human beings I have ever had the fortune of coming across. So, Aiko, could you tell us a little bit about your job, first of all?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Aiko, and I'm with HomeAid Los Angeles. We're a nonprofit charity in Los Angeles County, and we do three things. But the most important thing we do is we help build homeless shelters. So we are a part of the building industry. And so what we do is we try to marry or pair service providers that need some kind of construction or renovation on their properties with a builder that will actually take over the whole project, run it, and hopefully will save a lot of money. So since 1990, HomeAid's been doing this work, and we've built about 23 shelters, and we've saved service providers about $4 million. So actually, we're kind of like a Match.com with a coupon. So it works really well. The builders always want to give back, but they really don't understand the whole service provider world. And vice versa, you know, the homeless service providers don't really understand how to do construction, which is very complex in LA County. So we try to kind of combine them together so that we can get as many housing facilities online, because as you know, in LA County, we have quite a large homeless population. And this is the way to give back to them to get housing kind of, you know, established as fast as we can. The other thing we do is we do a lot of community activities and outreach. We call that our cares. But the most exciting thing is we just launched something called Works, which is our workforce development training program, because we do know that in Los Angeles, there's a lot of building, but there's not a lot of people that can do it. So the construction industry is having a gap in labor. They can't find good people to work. So, and we have a lot of people unemployed due to COVID. So we thought, well, let's figure out a program that fits both and be a solution for both. So we started a fundamentals and construction training program so that we can get as many people trained and into the workforce as possible through into construction. So we just launched that. So cross your fingers, we're going to be successful and get more people to work.
Wow, Aiko, always innovative, thinking outside of the box, seeing what the needs are in the community and finding a way to bring about a solution. That's beautiful. Aiko, so let's take a few steps back and rewind. Before HomeAid, you were at Illumination Foundation, which is where I met you. And could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was your baby, your project.
That was my baby, but that wasn't my first job. That was actually, I would say, my fourth job at Illumination Foundation. So I went to UCLA, so I'm a Bruin, and of course, you know, during that time, every mother and father wanted their children to be doctors. So I started a long time ago at UCLA in pre-med, but I realized that, you know, that wasn't really my interest. I was more academic. I like to do research. So my first job was actually working as a lab tech, just washing dishes in a lab. You know, I would sit there and I would wash all the test tubes and the flasks, and then they would let me clean up, and then they would let me, like, hopefully, you know, tidy up and make some solutions while the researchers did their work. So I was kind of a lowly lab rat a long time ago. And then I got a job basically in research at UCLA, and I said, Mom, I'm gonna actually go into research, and she was like, okay, if that's what you want, okay. So I did that, and I did that for about 15 years. So I loved it. It was really fun doing research at UCLA, very exciting, very intellectually stimulating, but it wasn't very creative. And so I needed to do something else because, you know, all day long was chemistry, lab notes, very kind of in a box, you know, and rinse and repeat because you did the same experiment, you know, 100 times. It wasn't very creative at all. So my side hustle during college was I was a pastry chef. So I didn't make a lot of money at UCLA in the lab. So I decided I would just start baking. And so I took some classes and I got hired, and I started at the bottom in the pastry world. You know, I was there cleaning the pots, right? But then after a few years, you know, I was making all the cakes, and we were doing all the desserts for a lot of the hotels, and every weekend I would go at 4 in the morning. It was freezing, and I would go into the pastry shop, and we would make all the cold things at the beginning because you had to like send it out before 8 o'clock so it can be delivered to all the bakeries. So we would be doing, cold things in the morning, and then after that it got hotter, and then we did the hot stuff. But I did that for about 4 years. And I got to the point where eventually our pastry shop was well known, and we actually did the Academy Awards a few times. So we got to the point where we did high-end shishi kind of desserts, so it was like, oh, okay, here we are at the Academy Awards again, making ridiculous chocolate things for movie stars. But that was fantastic. That was a really great few years. I was very young. I could do 2 jobs at the same time to pay my rent, but got married, and then we moved to San Diego for my husband's job, and I decided to go to business school because I wanted to try a different career. So I started over again in school and went to business school, and there I met the founders of Illumination Foundation in business school. So we decided, what can we do to make an impact in the community? And homelessness was on the rise in Orange County. So we said, we're in business school. Why don't we start a business? Why don't we open a nonprofit? So we started at the beginning around a kitchen table to create Illumination Foundation, which at that time was just an idea, and like 6 people that wanted to try to do some change in Orange County. And I think now it's about 15 years later, they're one of the largest nonprofits in Orange County. They run a lot of shelters, and it's just kind of amazing to see, how that progression went. And that's where I met Carolyn. So that was very hard. And I was at the bottom. I was like, making flyers. So another start at the beginning. But as you do any job, you get good at it, right? You just got to just be persistent and just know that, this is what you need to do to get to somewhere else. So when I left Illumination Foundation, because I felt like I wasn't learning anymore, I'm one of those people that like to kind of start things up apparently. So I decided to join HomeAid, and it was very new to me. It was not client service. It was more of construction and building the shelters, because I kind of wanted to do that. So I came in and I didn't know how to do anything of my job, and I had to do a lot of learning, but I had a lot of good expertise in the past and transferable skills. So it all helps. It all helps. So now that when I'm working on a shelter, I can see it from the lens of the client, because we were working with homelessness, right? I know how to do detailed drawings and plans because I worked at a homeless shelter. I did all my lab stuff. I know how to take great notes, and so that was great. And then and then for the creativity, for my pastry skills, I know what looks good. So we can make a shelter be firm and sturdy, but we wanted to make it comforting and pretty. So you take all the stuff that you learned through the years and you put it together in any new job you have, so that you can really do not just a good job but a great job. So that's why I think everything in my background, I'm sure in yours, you can put toward your next new job, whatever that be, and it's going to be such a better product than if you just do one thing. So that's where I am now. So taking on everything I've learned in so many years to create this new job of mine, and hopefully I can impact a lot more people.
So inspirational.
That was a long-winded story, but there it goes.
But just to talk about and reflect on that evolution, first of all, I have to say you're incredibly humble, to start, to have an established career and decide, what, I'm not really content with this. I want to try something else. And then starting from the bottom again and again and again. And I think it takes someone who's quite resilient to go through that. And you're constantly raising the bar. Oh my goodness.
You always start at the beginning. You never start at the top. That's kind of the thing, and honestly, if you start at the beginning, every part of the process, and you become an expert by default because you start at the bottom and you create it up, right? If you start at the top, then it's kind of hard because you don't have a good foundation. So, and if you can, if you do start in the middle, learn everything, learn everybody's job. That's what I think is the one thing that I took into all these different careers, is that you just have to be curious what other people do, because they're going to impact your job, right? So if you know where they're coming from or what they need, then instead of, being at odds, you say, oh, I understand, this is my goal, this is your goal. How do we find, alignment together? And then you have an ally, you work together. So I think, it doesn't hurt to learn everything about your job and then about everybody else's job to some degree, because then you work together as a team versus being, isolated. So
yeah. I cannot imagine how many people you work with on a daily basis. Like, you have your team, but then of course you're managing and being a liaison for so many different groups and organizations and constructions and all of this. But I'm sure even though everyone has a similar intention, everyone wants to make this project be successful for various reasons. But I'm sure you're working with various different types of personalities, and some might not be as easy or cooperative. How do you get them to kind of see eye to eye and be on the same page as you?
That's a talent that you have to learn. And I kind of look at myself like a peanut butter sandwich. Okay, so I'm the peanut butter sandwich and I'm the squishy middle, because you're going to have somebody that's crusty on one side and someone that's kind of soft, maybe a little, stale on the other side, and you're the squishy middle. So you got to be, you got to hold it all together. So that's kind of the peanut butter part. You got to stick everybody together so that you are in alignment and you go toward the same goal. But you have to be a little sweet, that's the jelly part, right? You got to say, okay, they're going to be crusty, they're going to be this, but if you're sweet and you hold it all together, then you just keep on moving toward, toward a team. So I always call myself the squishy middle, because there's always builders that, want to do this fast and not so pretty. And then there's a service provider that goes, hey, how about if we paint this all pink, and then this one blue, and the builder's like, I don't have time for pink and blue. So you have to kind of say, well, let's remember what we're here for. And that's why I think you just have to have some good humor, and just remind everybody that, we're all in the same team, we're all in the same sandwich. We're going to do this great, let's just kind of negotiate this and just be friendly, because things can get very tense when, people are under stress of time or money. But I always find that having a sense of humor and starting out with that understanding that we are going to do this together and it's going to be fun, then a lot of things kind of fall away. It's people like you when you're fun. So it's like.
I definitely think it's, before I had interviewed this man, Gary, who's director of sales, and I was telling him, he's very easygoing, similar to you, has a sense of humor, and it's this trickle down effect. I think leadership is so important, because anyone that works with you or anyone that works under you kind of feels that energy and can, they can either, if they have someone who's a very strict and almost oppressive boss, and it adds so much tension and stress to your workers, and then that's going to affect their personal lives as well. So someone like you that can bring together a group of people that have various backgrounds and different ways of thinking, I think it's so amazing to add that sense of levity, humor. We talked a lot about that earlier, I think is key.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's interesting, because with my works program, it's a fast accelerator program, because we really just want to get people to work. And we thought, well, should it be like how to use all these power tools so that they're perfectly, ready to use power tools. And when we talked to a lot of our builders who are going to be the employers, they said, no, we don't need them to know really anything. It's like, so what am I training for? Yeah. Right? If it's not how to operate a power saw, right? It's like, no, what we really want, because we're going to train them anyway. And, it's going to be on the job training. We really want attitude. We want them to come on time. We want them to be reliable, and we want them to have a good attitude, right? So it's really not the hard skills that a lot of employers are looking for, because we know we can train you. You're going to be specific for this job, and we have to do all this training. That's called onboarding. That's pretty standard. It's really, am I going to see you there every day? Are you going to be on time? And are you going to have a good attitude? So when I teach you, you're going to be receptive, right? You're not going to say, oh no, when I was doing this and this other job, it's like, well, then you're already kind of having a little bit of a difficulty at the get-go. So when we started creating our works program, we said, okay, it's attitude, it's aptitude for some degree, and it's really just to get there on time. So we just have to kind of, make our students understand that, we're giving you this great opportunity. This is what we expect from the job site. And if you can do that, you can get hired and you can go far. That's really what I look for. I can pretty much train a lot of people. So, but if I don't have a relationship with you and it's not kind of, a healthy one, it's going to be difficult at the get-go. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's something we've been talking about a lot. And all the interviews, they say that same thing, where every skill is essentially trainable. Of course, you need XYZ standards or like requirements to even get the job.
But if you're a doctor, that's a little bit different. But it's like, but generally everybody gets on onboarding and on the job training.
Yeah, and something else we kind of touched upon that we share in common is that we're both introverts, right, by nature. But your job constantly, requires you to go meet, talk to people with this sense of high energy, charisma, and optimism. Being optimistic, right? Yeah. So how do you manage that, like your work life and your personal life, especially now with the quarantine where anyone 24/7 you can be contacted knowing that you're at home, right?
Yes, it is. It is a bit of a challenge, and you and I are introverts, so that means that when we have to meet people or present, it takes a lot out of us. It's kind of stressful. We have to prepare, So for today, when Carolyn told me that we were taping this, it's like, oh my goodness. So I had to get into the right mindset, and so you got to wear a lot of hats. And this hat is, I'm going to wear this hat today for this purpose, and then when I am done, I'm going to take the hat off and I'm going to go. So it's one of those things where, it's your professional nature. This is what they expect you to do, and this is how you have to perform. But you can, take a break and kind of like de-stress out of that.
Yeah.
Extroverts are different. They love people. They love interactions. It feeds them. It makes them energized. It's kind of the opposite for introverts. So depending on where you are in that spectrum, you just have to understand that you don't have to, you don't have to be, this kind of persona all the time. If you're an introvert, you can kind of just prepare yourself and understand you need to prepare yourself and do this, and then you could take a break and do it again. So I would think that it would be kind of a good preparation, and that's all about not just knowing how to do the job, but knowing how to handle personalities, how to work with your boss, how to interview is to understand yourself, what kind of energizes you and what doesn't. And so you can prepare accordingly. Like maybe an extrovert will just go crazy at an interview and not let the interview end, or they love this. So I would just say just prepare. And interviews can be scary. They are very nerve-wracking because you're getting judged by your performance. And if your English skills aren't that wonderful, that's stressful as well. But I think the more prepared you are, the less nervous you get. So Carol and I are complete introverts. We don't like to do a lot of public speaking, yet this is what our job is all about. So we have to, and we have to get good at it. So I had to get good at it, very quickly in business school because they made you do speeches every day. And oh my God, that scared the heck out of me the first week. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I can't look at anybody. So I think the more practice, then it doesn't become as frightening. And so I would just suggest, thinking about doing a lot of practice, but also the interview is not one-sided. They're interviewing you, but you're kind of also interviewing this potential boss of yours. So I think my best interviews in which I had the most comfort doing and also the most success in getting a job was not so much a one-sided kind of interview, but also a discussion. I would ask questions about the organization. I would like to see how the boss is. So that kind of dialogue is very interesting to a person who's hiring somebody, because they know that there's somebody of intelligence there. It's not just someone who's going to take orders and do it. So I would think if you did a little research on the company and had the idea that it's an interview on both sides, that it'll make you a little more comfortable because it'll give you a little more feel of empowerment in the interview. You've practiced well, you've done your research on the agency, and you have some questions for them. And every interview are always going to say, do you have any questions? And
Oh.
those that have a question are the ones you pay attention to because they actually did the work to understand what the job is like. And we love those. We're like, oh, he looked at my website. He knows what I do. This is great. He actually wants to get in this job. So those are the ones that stand out for me, are the ones that actually ask me a really good question. And actually, you know, because one of my questions to them is, what do you know about my agency? And if they say, I know that this might not be the right person for me.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful, Aiko. That aligns with everything we've talked about so far in this.
Good.
Oh, I'm so happy you're reinforcing that. Aiko, do you have, okay, we talked about obviously doing your work, doing the research, but for your position now, you said that maybe you didn't have all the skills or all the training necessary for this executive director position, but how did you convince them in the interview that, like, I can do this, like, I can rise to the occasion, I can do this job?
Yeah, so I had a very interesting interview because I submitted it online and I didn't know anybody there, and they gave me a call, and it was sometimes big companies, you know, they have those HR facilitators, so it's always like the phone interview first. Yeah. Oh, can we have this phone interview? And we'll do it at this time, and it's one person, and you talking, and you have no idea, you know, because it's this voice over the phone, and you can't smile at them, you don't know what they look like. Yeah. And, you know, so I said, I would love to, can you give me the questions so I can prepare? That always helps, right? So you know what they're going to ask and you can prepare your answers, because you want to, the point of the phone interview is to win the next interview. It's not to win the job. So just know that, you know, hiring is a lot of little stages. And so you just have to kind of, you know, fight your battles. And so the first thing is, get a phone interview, and then after the phone interview, get the real interview. So it's always a kind of a process, right? It's not always get the job. It's like just, and every part of that is a great learning tool. Like, oh, okay, so how do I, you know, you want to impress the person over the phone, so you kind of be a little forward and say, what are the questions you'd like to ask me? I'd like to prepare. So what does that mean? Oh, this person is interested. He wants to prepare. So this is important to him. This is already a good note without even having that interview, right? So this is good. So then you have your verbal interview. And what you want to do is get to the point where you win the real interview with the panel, or you get invited, or now I guess it's all on Zoom. So you want that Zoom interview, right? So you prepare for that. And so it's just a stage of interviewing that you got to kind of understand. And it's long. It could take months, right? Because it depends on how soon they want to hire. Mm-hmm. But if you look like a sterling candidate, they'll probably make that a little bit faster, because they're not going to want to lose you, right? So, so my interview, I wanted to win the real interview. So I answered questions honestly, but I did ask them questions as well. And I wanted to put some of my personality in it, because, you know, so like, for instance, are you going to remember the peanut butter story, the peanut butter sandwich story? Yeah. So, you know, you want to kind of make yourself stand out a little bit. So I talked about my dog. You know, it's like, here I am, you know, I'm so sorry my dog is barking, and he actually was. And I'm like, oh, he's my little poodle, and he sits on the couch with me, and we watch Netflix, and his favorite show is, you know, Cesar Millan. So, you know, then they remember you, right? And it's just in the general conversation. So, you know, I got this, I won the verbal interview, and I got into the panel interview, and it was great because, you know, they asked me all my questions. I already asked them what they wanted to know. And then at the very end of it, they go, well, do you have any questions for us, Aiko? And I pulled out my little peeps. I've got 7, right? It's like, I've got 7 questions. And I go, I know you can't answer this, but maybe you can answer some of them, you know, when we talk next. So what I'm doing is I'm saying I have 7 questions because I'm curious about the job. I want to make sure I do a good job for you. These are my very pointed questions because I looked at your website. And then I already said, hey, and this is for our next conversation. So I'm already inviting them for our next conversation. And I have given them homework to win me. So
Aiko, the mental, I like it.
So it's kind of like, well, I'm interviewing you as well. So you tell me what this is all about, and whether or not, you know, I will be good for you and you will be good for me, because I know nothing of building shelters. I really had no clue. I'm like, I'm going to need mentoring. I said, I'm going to need some in-services mentoring. You're all professionals on the board. You're all in the business industry. I need a mentor, and I expect to learn for the first month everything, right? So I gave an expectation that I wanted to learn and do a really good job because of my learning from you guys, because you're the experts. So I think, that was helpful. So about a week later, they gave me the offer.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I think it's such a hard balance because, especially with today's job economy in various fields, they're not looking so hot. So
yeah,
there's a desperation, there's a different kind of energy in the air. But I tell my students, in a sense, you kind of have to keep it, like, control that, like, don't show that. But then, so kind of in some sense have like a bit of a poker face, but then you have to show parts of your personality, this professionalism, being adaptable. It's a lot going on psychologically during an interview, and they're constantly reading you, your body language, and now with Zoom, it's like only from like the, stomach up. That's all they can see.
And what are they looking in the background? It's like,
yeah.
Oh, look. Gosh, who likes that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I like Harry Potter, right? It's like, you're all checking out my background.
I like it. It's very like cozy. Like I feel like it complements you really well.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, be careful, because when they check you, they're gonna check, your Instagram, they're gonna check your Facebook, and you don't want some goofy gummy bear 32. That's not so professional, right? Or even worse than that. You want kind of a professional kind of email, and they will check everything. So they will look and say, oh my God, look at this person. She likes to party very hard on the weekend. You might not want to have your Facebook postings, representing that, because I would do that. It's natural for me to go, okay, Carolyn Kim, what the heck is she all about? Oh, okay, got it. Now I might ask you about that, and you have to be prepared to answer and justify everything that you've posted publicly, and because it's fair game. So yeah, so you got to be a little aware when you go into the interview process that all bets are off. You can check out anything, right? And you can check them as well, probably. So yeah.
Yeah, I often do research. Like whoever interviews me, I try to like see, okay, what have they published? What have they done in their career?
Mm-hmm,
I remember one job I got relatively quick. She didn't necessarily tell me like you're hired, but she said, oh, you'll hear from us real soon. Like she was surprised that I knew what she published, what she did, like historically. And I don't think a lot of candidates brought that to the table. So I like that element. And thank you for bringing up that point about your personal life. Anything you post on social media, fair game. Fair game.
Yeah. Like, unfortunately, my name, as uncommon as it is, there are two people in the world that have my name. So when you Google Aiko Tan, you either get a very skinny, cute ice dancer from Malaysia, or you get some Chinese gal that has very sexy jeans. So it's like, you never know what you're gonna get, and so it's like, oh, okay, it's like very odd, right? Carolyn, you have a very more common name than mine, so I bet you when they Google Carolyn Kim, a lot of Carolyn Kims come out.
Like, which one?
Exactly.
To close out our interview, I wanted to ask you, what are 3 work personalities do you think that best summarize you, like encompass your work identity?
So, I'm pretty resilient. I'm goal-oriented and resilient, because, if I need to get something done, I will just kind of work. And that's the one thing I think a lot of people who get to positions, of kind of a higher degrees, they just put in the work. It's not that you're incredibly brilliant or you got this amazing opportunity. It's you just put in the work. People notice when people put in the work. Mm-hmm. And that's what we always hear from our builders and our employers. If you put in the work, you can pay the bills, you can take care of your family, and you can rise in your industry. So just put in the work. And people will notice. They might not look like they're looking at you, but they're actually looking at you. And so you put in the work. For me, I'm a jack of all trades. I know a lot of stuff. A little bit, because I'm one of those omnivores. I try everything, and I know this is no good, or I can do that. And so I kind of try to do a lot of things, because I don't really do anything very in depth, but I like breadth, because what I do is a lot of networking. So I need to like understand, a lot of things and put them together like a little puzzle piece. So I like to be a jack of all trades. I like to learn about everybody and what they do and how they do it, because ultimately, when you're in leadership roles, that's what you need to do. You need to put people together in teams and motivate and get things going. A good leader knows how to put their team together in the most effective way. So that's one. And then I think it's because I like to do things in a certain way that is kind of kind and kind of supportive. I like to be a servant leader. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't let someone do something that I haven't done, because then I understand what they do. So that's why, hence, I like to learn to do everything. But I think it's important for leaders to train and teach the next generation of leaders. And I've seen a lot of bad leaders in my time, and I never want to do that. But I did learn from them. So I think you could learn in every situation. So even if it's a situation that doesn't go your way, that's a learning. That's a learning for you. You can say, hey, that didn't work, or he wasn't so wonderful. I'm not going to be like that, or this is a better way. So I think everything I do, I kind of am a little bit of a sponge. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to put that in my data banks. And then, I hopefully will be a better leader because I've had that experience, or I've seen a bad experience or something. So just learn from everything. When I got my job as an executive director, I learned for the first 2 months. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was a sponge. I talked to everybody. I talked to all my directors. I talked to all my peers. And I just said, okay, I'm a blank slate. I got to learn. So I just started learning. And then eventually, as you go through, you become the expert, and people ask you to speak, like now. It's like, okay, I guess I'm at a certain level that you want to talk to me. This is great. So yeah, just learn everything. And because if you don't keep learning, then, it's sad. There's so many interesting things in the world and new things to kind of find out and discover, that I think continuous learning is always very important.
Aiko, thank you so much. You're so incredibly inspirational. Like, with all the things you're doing, I would imagine if I were in your shoes, I would feel like I'm spreading myself so thin. But you have this very strong sense of hunger for knowledge and for constant self-growth, whether it's in your professional career or your personal life. And I think that drive is just so contagious. And I can see why your team admires you so much. So thank you, Aiko. I'm going to close out this interview. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Well, good luck. Good luck, everybody. We hope to see you soon in the world in LA if you're coming for a job. And lovely to see all you, and hope this was helpful for you today.
Oh, thank you.